Hey there, this is Johanna. This is the second episode in a 4-part mini-series. Navigating Holiday First was released on Monday of this week, and Creating Your Own Meaningful Rituals and more on handling the holidays, because let's face it, that's a weighty subject, will drop on the next 2 Mondays. I hope that these episodes will be helpful companions during what I know can be a really hard time of year for some. If you know someone who might find comfort in hearing them, please do share them. Someone that you care about is grieving. You want to help, but you're not sure what to say, what to do, or how to even be around them because you're afraid to put your foot in your mouth and say something that makes them feel worse. But you don't want to say nothing either and make them think that you don't care or you aren't thinking about them and their person. Supporting someone who's grieving can be hard, really hard. And around the holidays and special dates or the anniversary of their death, Jesus, if you've never been through something similar, you feel like you're floundering in such unfamiliar territory. Or maybe the person you want to be there for is dealing with a recent separation or a silent grief that few others know about. Well, this episode is for you, my friend. And thank you so much for caring deeply enough to not only want to walk beside them on their grief journey, but for wanting to do it with compassion, intention, and care. By the end of this episode, you'll have a better understanding of some of the things they might be experiencing, some practical tools to help you walk beside them, and a little more confidence to show up for them in a way that matters. So let's dig into that. You know how life throws us curveballs? Nobody gets through this journey of life without a few storms. Welcome to Transformative Journeys. I'm your host, Johanna LaRue. Each week, I'll share my thoughts and insights and dig into strategies that can empower you to rediscover yourself, learn about transforming pain into power, building confidence to navigate life's challenges, and cultivating a life of meaning and joy. Join me on this journey of exploration and transformation. Welcome back to Transformative Journeys with Johanna, where we talk honestly about some of the complicated ways in which we experience being human. The grief, the healing, and the resilience around doing some of the really hard things in life. And I'm your host, Johanna, on my own journey of life, loss, healing, and resilience. And today we're not just going to talk about grieving. We're going to explore how to be a companion on someone's grief journey, as well as how to take care of you too while you're doing it. When you care about a grieving person, it can be difficult to know how best to honor their grief without further adding to their pain. You want to be helpful, but you might not be sure how to do it. Just like every griever and their experience is different, every relationship is different too. The hard truth is that after my son died, some of the people who I really thought would be there for me weren't. They became pretty absent pretty quickly. Once the funeral was over, so was their presence. I used to joke that they were probably worried that I was contagious and they were going to catch my grief, which isn't really funny, but it kind of felt like that back then. Over the years, I've learned that that's really only partly true. They weren't really afraid they'd catch my grief. They were either terrified to be too close to the fear that something similar could happen to them, or they were afraid that they would say or do the wrong thing. On the other hand, there were people who I hardly knew or who I never would have expected, who came and stepped quietly forward in ways that I never would have anticipated. The two neighbors who started stopping at my door every day to invite me on their evening walks, include me in their conversations, allowing me to talk about my son if the conversation had space for that, and equally gracious if my presence was silent. And if my answer some nights was, "Not tonight, thank you," they were back the next evening to ask again. The two men on the street who one or the other would come by every evening or every morning to snowblow my driveway and walkway. The phone call early on a Sunday afternoon saying, "I've made a roast dinner and I've made double, so I'll be by around 4 o'clock to drop it off." Not asking, not expecting me to leave the house and be sociable, just offering a quiet and profound kindness. Of course, there were quite a few invitations to join someone for dinner as well, an invitation to come over for tea with the added note that we didn't have to talk, but they were thinking of me, and if I didn't want to be alone. It might not just be the holiday season that your person needs support through either. They will have many special days and events during the days, weeks, months, and even years after their loss. There might be significant birthdays, Mother's Day or Father's Day, graduations, weddings, baby showers and births. And of course, the anniversary of a loved one's death is often a big emotional day. Keep in mind that the anxiety and stress leading up to a significant day can sometimes be harder for a grieving person than the day itself, as the anxiety and stress around thinking about it can make it just as emotional, or sometimes even more emotional, than the day of the event itself. And there's a somewhat ill-informed view, I guess you'd say, that the first year of milestone dates is always the worst. For some, maybe it is. But for others, the second year, after the numbness has worn off, they can be worse than the firsts. And for some people, the grief isn't death-related at all. It might be a separation, an estrangement, or a loss that nobody else recognizes, but they feel it just as intensely. For someone who's grieving a loss, it can sometimes feel like they've taken a giant step backwards in their healing because they're struggling with something like the day that would have been their 25th anniversary, or, any other number of years, when their child has been gone 10 years or longer than they were alive, when a sibling surpasses the age when their brother or sister was when they died. Really, any date that feels like a milestone, or a milestone that's never going to get to happen. And in a world where grief is often not even talked about, people feel pressured to move on, to get over things. And we're sometimes given the impression that there are these 5 neatly sequenced stages of grief, and that, we feel like we should try to get through them through those 3 bereavement days that most employers allow. Most of us barely know how we are supposed to grieve, let alone how to walk beside someone who is grieving. So we avoid the topic entirely. Want to fix it or make it better. Offer well-meaning advice from a place of wanting to help, but that often completely misses the mark. Or say nothing because we don't want to say the wrong thing. The nice thing is that now you're not going to be one of those people anymore, because I'm going to share some solid, tangible things you'll have in your back pocket to help you calmly, quietly, and compassionately walk beside someone who's grieving. And the good news is that it has nothing to do with learning how to say the perfect thing, and those awkward silences are no longer going to feel as awkward, because it really is just about showing up, being present, and not being tempted to rush someone's pain or healing. If you're nodding along with me now and thinking, yes, I know someone I could walk beside, I am so happy this is helping you. If you'd like some more tools to help you understand the grief journey or to help you take care of yourself while you're supporting someone, I've put together some free online tools to help. You can find them all on the Johanna's Toolboxes page at transformativejourneys.ca, and I will put a link in the show notes. So first of all, sometimes the simplest and most meaningful thing you can do is to let someone know that you're thinking about them. People who are grieving often feel like they're living in a bubble, struggling with a world that's going on as normal while they feel like theirs has stopped. And just knowing that they're not forgotten can be profoundly comforting. But here are a few more ways you can truly support someone who's grieving. The first is to allow the person the right to grieve. Everyone grieves differently, so give them permission to grieve the way that they need to around you. Some people need to withdraw and work through their sadness alone. Some manage by carrying on as usual and tempering their pain through the distraction of going right back to work and being around people. Pay attention to what your person needs, not what you would do in the situation. And acknowledge their loss out loud. Even months down the road, when many others will have forgotten, think they should be over it, or no longer even remember that it happened. Ask them how they're really doing, and then listen while they tell you, without offering advice, without telling them what you'd do in their position, without giving your opinion. Just listening. Unless they have specifically indicated that it's distressing for them or too painful or makes them uncomfortable, if they've lost someone, use the person's name out loud. Often, talk about the person and allow your grieving person to talk about them. And talk to the grieving person about the loss and about what happened. Listen to them without judgment. And again, please resist giving advice. Just be there. Understand that grief comes and goes in intensity and frequency for quite a while. There might be times when they don't want or need to talk about it. And there might be times when they seem to talk about it all the time. Take their cue and just be there. In whatever way they need you to be there. Offer tangible help. Don't ask them what you can do, or worse still, say, please let me know if I can do anything. Someone who's grieving seldom knows what they need or want help with. So don't wait for them to ask. They won't. They can't. The brain is overloaded. Understand that grief activates our brain's stress response system, which essentially means that they're running on emotional overload, and the part of their brain that takes care of information processing, decision making, planning, it's just not functioning that well right now. They likely have no idea what they need, just that everything is overwhelming right now. Think, I'm dropping off dinner tomorrow. No pressure to answer the door. I'll just leave it on the step. If you're picking up your kids at the same school, let them know that you'll pick up theirs and drop them off at home for a few weeks. A quick text or call saying, I'm running to the grocery store. Check to see if you need milk or bread, and I'll grab it for you while I'm there. Go shovel the driveway, or if your spouse or kids take care of that at your place, ask them to go do it. If the grieving person is usually the one that hosts family gatherings and you know the family, see if someone else can offer to do it this year. Sometimes one of the most helpful things you can do if you're a friend of the family is running interference to help your grieving person build and hold boundaries. If they want to keep up that tradition, great. Get as many of the family members as possible to help with, the shopping, the cooking, the cleaning, the decorating, and whatever else needs to be done. Helping them plan ahead. Ask the person that you're supporting what he or she wants to have happen at family events. How would they like to acknowledge the loss and at the same time keep the holiday, going for everyone? And I'll be talking about some of these things in the next 2 episodes, but there's many ways that you can help someone quietly acknowledge the loss at this time of year. Some families literally set an empty place at the table and take a moment to share stories or anecdotes about the person who's passed away. Some light a candle in front of a photo of their loved one to signify that they're remembered and part of the celebrations. Others might make toasts to the memories. Help your person start to figure out what will feel best for them and others involved. Because remember, that whole planning piece in their brain is really struggling right now. Something huge that a support person can do is to be what I like to call their anchor person. The person who they can call, take to events that they might actually feel like attending, and signal when they need a break, when they need an exit, when they need a bathroom cry, someone to say to the host, we're leaving now. And someone, like I said, to run interference with family or friends if things get awkward or people aren't respecting their boundaries. So I'm going to phrase this one as pay some attention. And what I mean by that is don't assume that silence means that they're okay. If you notice your friend or your family member that you're trying to support isn't eating, isn't getting enough sleep, isn't functioning well at home or at work, don't ignore it. These can actually be symptoms that they might be getting clinically depressed. Invite the person to a meal. Talk to them about the importance of maintaining routines. And if their inability to take care of themselves seems prolonged, do what you can to get them to seek some counseling. And remember, you're not responsible for fixing their mental health or their mental wellness. You're supporting them, not replacing professional care. But sometimes people miss some of those signs. And finally, just give them support and love. By talking about their loved one and listening to their stories and feelings, you help reassure them that they're not alone during their sadness. Try not to just be there to distract them or cheer them up, unless, of course, they've actually asked for that. Remember, your presence means much more than your perfection. So I always leave my listeners with something to ponder during the week, either to journal out or to just take with them on their next walk. And I have some for you today too. I always say, make it kind, but ask yourself, what fears come up for me around saying or doing the wrong thing? And what compassion can I offer myself around those fears? What's one small, meaningful way that I can show up for the person I'm supporting without overwhelming myself? And how can I take care of my own emotional needs while I'm supporting someone who's grieving? I really hope that this episode has landed for those of you who are trying to support someone who's dealing with a loss or with grief this holiday season or whatever time of year the people you care about need it. As we wrap up, I want you to remember, you don't need to do it perfectly or do it right to support someone who's grieving. You just need to show up and be present with them. Be patient with yourself. And finally, and very importantly, remember to take care of yourself while you're supporting someone else. Next week, I'm going to be tackling creating meaningful rituals because sometimes the traditions and the way we've always done things are just too painful. Just don't fit this year or may never again. And we want to create some new ones. Until then, be as kind with yourself as you are being with the person you're supporting. Take a breath, take a walk, and give yourself a high five or a big hug for being the incredible person that you are. Thank you so much for being here with me today. Come say hi to me on Instagram at transformativejourneys.joanna or visit my website and say hi there. If you've got an idea for something that you'd like to hear me talk about, leave a message there and you might just see it in a future episode. And lastly, you know that hitting the subscribe button, tapping the bells and whatever on these platforms really helps the show get noticed. So I'm going to make you a deal. You tap it and I will keep dropping the best of what's in my heart and soul so that we can keep learning together. Until next time, this is Johanna reminding you that it doesn't matter if you fall. What matters is how well you bounce. This is Transformative Journeys. See you next time. If you'd like to learn more about Threads of Life, a Canadian non-profit organization that offers families who've experienced workplace tragedy, community, peer support, and education, and the organization that's been such an important part of my own healing journey, you can find them at threadsoflife.ca. Your support helps me keep creating free tools and honest conversations, because let's be real, even when you love what you're doing, sometimes it takes a whole lot of metaphorical duct tape to hold it all together. If you'd like to toss a little love into the duct tape fund, you can now support the podcast at buymeacoffee.com. I'll put a link in the show notes. Just wanted to throw in a disclaimer. This podcast is for entertainment and informational purposes only and should not replace the advice of a medical or mental health expert. I'm not a licensed counselor or a therapist, just a human with a mic and a story of growth and resilience. No degree, no fancy letters after my name. I'm a full-time student at the School of Hard Knocks, University of Life, where I figure I'll graduate when I take my last breath. In other words, I'm just Johanna, a fellow human being on my journey through this thing called life, and your concierge on this transformative journey.